everybody. Good morning. So many new faces. It's like turnovers, right? Is it just random? You're here for the week or 2 weeks? What?
It's a shootation starting.
Oh, it's another time.
2 weeks.
But wasn't it just over? That
It
was
was over.
one.
The little bit. It
Oh,
started today.
very nice. Very nice. So how many of you are there?
I think I heard 7, but I'm not sure.
Very nice.
Some more people. Couple.
Very nice. So welcome. Where are you from?
DC.
Oh, is this your first time learning or?
I don't know. I studied in Israel for about almost close to a year.
Wow.
I've been married for a few years. Much more religious and so on.
Wow.
It's hard.
Very hard. Yeah.
So
So you learned at least a year in Israel, where you
yeah.
from?
Well, I mean, I was in Israel for a year. I jumped around with different mixed Islam classes. I was with Ish for a while, and then I was going to go to Midrash Rafael Machaya, and I was like, no, I went to that. It's like, I work. So I came back to the States.
Very nice. Very nice.
You? I'm Brazilian.
Uh-huh.
My first time learning, my first time learning.
Wow. Beautiful. Very nice. It should go well. It's a lot of hatzlacha, a lot of luck.
Hi.
Hello. I spoke to you on the phone yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tomorrow 11 o'clock. That's good.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. Okay, so welcome everybody. I hope you have a wonderful experience. You also for the first time learning? Yeah. No. And you? No. So you're familiar already with a lot. Okay. So our topic is the Jewish woman. We started last week. We spoke about one of the major phrases that King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech had called the Jewish woman Isha Yiras Hashem Hitisal, which means that the God-fearing woman, she's the one who's praiseworthy. And we explained that, of course, God-fearing, we all live with the fear of God, but it refers to the fact that her energy and her drive is always one where you feel and recognize that she has a higher fear, a higher being, a higher conscious, so to speak. So her decisions, right or left, green or blue, yes or no, are not based on, what I'm in the mood of, what I like, what I don't like, what I want, but based on what does God want from me now. And we explained that really this is for every individual, all people, all mankind, certainly all Jewish people, but specifically for women where her life and her daily schedule is not so defined. Torah doesn't define it as strongly as the man's schedule, and therefore it could go into many different directions, kosher directions. We're not talking about doing anything that's not okay. We're talking about in the world is normal and okay. And so what is the drive? How do I know that I'm doing the right thing? What is pushing me? What is my energy? And that is, what does Hashem want from me now? What does God want from me now? And we went into different generations and different times where it was kind of a given. I'm just going to close the door. Sorry. We went into different generations and different times where it was kind of like a given, because God was more open, more revealed, more with people, and so it was clear. And specifically in our time, it's not so obvious. Things are not so clear. The world is a little bit like, and so it's challenging to know all the time that I'm doing the right thing. And so when a person has a higher conscious, that helps him know that it's not about the ego, it's not about the me, it's not what I want, but what God wants. And we spoke about that for a long time. And we're going to take that message and continue with that on our topic for today, which is the topic of modesty, of what we call in Hebrew tzniut, a certain humbleness, a certain, again, constant feeling that there's a higher being all the time. And it's interesting that we put these three phrases together. We're going to see a little bit how it's really one thing. So first of all, before we go into the details and learn the details of how it works, it's important to know in general that modesty is not a woman's thing. It's all mankind, and specifically all Jewish people. In other words, everybody has to have, and if they don't have it, has to develop and reveal a certain feeling, a certain understanding, a certain recognition of how do we say this, of feeling and realizing that there is a certain place or a certain way that my behavior should should be. When I say behavior, I mean in what I think and in what I say and what I do and the way I act. All has to be in a certain world, in a certain framework. And this is all true for all people, all Jewish people, men and women alike. It has nothing to do with who's next to you and who's not next to you. If you're living alone in an island, the exact same modesty is demanded and expected from a person. It's not a matter of, okay, now I'm myself, I can do what I want. And if there's people around them, suddenly we have to act a certain way. So even a male who's living himself in an island and there's nobody else around, Torah tells him certain behaviors that are okay and certain behaviors that are not okay. Certainly a female, we'll get to how a female is even stronger, but in general, it's all people. All people are expected a certain sense of feeling respected, respectful, a certain respectful behavior. And what's really interesting to realize is that, people think it's rules and it's lists and it's laws. It's not. It's exactly how we started off our class, which was really our class last week. It is an understanding and a living with a higher being. In other words, let's be practical. If we saw God and it was right here in the corner, on the throne with the whole glory, we wouldn't say certain things, we wouldn't do certain things, and we would certainly, act in a certain way. And the goal or the avodah, the purpose, the toil of a person is to live with God all the time as if I'm actually seeing him right here next to me. So whether I'm on an island alone or in my own house in my bedroom alone or out in the streets, it doesn't really matter because God is the same in every single place. And living and feeling with that feeling existence all the time will automatically put in me a certain, we can call it, I don't even need to use the word modesty, a certain respectful behavior, a certain behavior that is normal when we are in the king's palace next to the king, right? We don't scream, we don't shout, we don't say things we shouldn't be saying, and we certainly don't dress in a way that we shouldn't be dressing. It's constantly, all the time, a respectful and acceptable image, right? This is really what's expected. And that's why we're not going to go into this now, maybe later, but that's why Torah even gives us detailed laws about how to act even in our bedrooms, even in the bathroom, even in places where seemingly, okay, now there's free for all. There's no such thing free for all because God is all over and there's never a time when I am free for all. It is always with a higher understanding and existence, etc. So I want you to realize the first thing, and it's important to get this straight, that modesty is an exact proportion to how much am I living and feeling God. In other words, a person who's actually understanding and living with Hashem will automatically, it's not a work, it's not a toil, you don't have to do anything for it, you don't have to prepare yourself, automatically your behavior and thoughts and actions and dress is going to be in a certain way, which really means, and it's a little bit scary to say these words because sometimes it's coming from unconscious feelings. I don't think anyone is bad or negative. It's just not realizing. But when someone is the opposite of modest or acting very, very immodest, that comes from a very strong arrogance. The opposite of what we call in Hebrew bittul. Bittul means humbleness. In other words, modesty and humble go together. And being immodest goes together with just me. arrogant. I don't know about anybody. It's just me. I'm the king of the world. And the more the immodesty goes up, it's the more just, in Hebrew we say gava, when a person is just full of himself. Again, some people are not consciously aware of that. They don't realize. I'm not saying that a person is actually, saying I am arrogant and therefore I am immodest. But in a subconscious, deeper sense, that's what the person is doing. So when a person walks around the streets in an unacceptable fashion, or says things, immodesty is in our talk, says things that are unacceptable. This is coming from a just feeling of self. He feels himself. I'm not even going into the females yet. We're talking about anybody. Feeling myself. I'm the most important thing around, and therefore I can dress how I want, talk how I want, do what I want, see what I want. The more there's an awareness of God, of something higher, of something deeper, it automatically, we're not talking about you have to toil or work on it, it automatically puts me into a humbleness, into the opposite of self, of, all about me, humbles me a little bit, which immediately is translated in my action as being modest. Again, modest in what I say, in how I act, in how I dress, etc. So our first important conclusion is that modesty is a direct correlation to humbleness. And immodesty means the opposite of humbleness, a feeling of self. And for a Jew, the most important criteria is humbleness. Humbleness means I'm aware of God. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, hear, O Israel, there is one God. That's something that has to be in my mind, in my heart, 24/7. It's an avodah, it's a work. I'm not saying it's a given. We do forget, we do get angry, we get nervous, we have our daily schedules. We're doing other things sometimes, and it's like, ooh, I forgot. But the work in the morning, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I have to do is recognize, thank God. I woke up, I'm fine, He returned my soul to me, I'm starting a new day. When I go to sleep at night, it's again recognizing and thanking God for the day that I just had. In other words, the work, funny using the word work, and Hebrew we say avodah. I don't know the proper translation, but the goal of a human being in general, and Jewish people specifically, is constant awareness of God. Constant awareness of God equals humbling myself. I can't be Mr. Ego if I'm aware of God. Being aware of God means that I'm not Mr. Ego. Someone else is Mr. Ego, and I'm lower down. So again, the more I'm aware of God, the more I'm humble. Humble equals being modest. Humble equals brings to behavior and actions and dress and living in a modest fashion. So just to conclude our first message, which is important to know, is that all Jewish people, by being aware, all people in the whole world, not just Jewish people, but specifically Jewish people who are demanded of them, who it is demanded of them to constantly be aware of godliness, this should bring a humbleness which automatically brings a modesty. So we have to work from the deeper side, not start from, okay, we are allowed to say this, don't say this, dress this, don't dress this, do this, don't dress this. From the deeper angle, if we're aware of God and living with God, this will bring me to a certain humbleness which will automatically, it demands a certain modesty. And this is for all people in every single place, wherever they are, whenever they are. There is no vacation of this at all. Like we said, Torah gives laws how to take showers, how to go to the bathroom, if I'm alone, emergency situations, everything. Everything is covered because God is all the time, all over, and we have to be aware of that all the time, all over, which brings to being modest all the time, all over. So if there's no questions on this, I'm going to continue. This is okay. This is understood. Yes.
If your husband intimate, so also
Torah tells us laws about that too. Yes. Everything is covered. It's like I said, it's in every single area. Of course, Torah tells us that we have to do it. It doesn't mean that we're not intimate, or we don't go to the bathroom, or we don't take showers. We do that, but it all has to do with a sense of recognition that God is here. God is here. God is, not above me, with me. God is with me in this situation. You understand? There can't be anything what Torah calls prikat ol. Prikat ol means leave me alone. just get out of here. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm free. Now I'm living it up. There's no breaks to God. Okay. So it's true that sometimes different things are taking place. Sometimes I'm eating, sometimes I'm praying, sometimes I'm sleeping, sometimes different examples of things that are happening. It doesn't mean that we don't do what God wants. God created us. He wants to do what we have to do. But the constant consciousness, awareness, which will bring that whatever I'm doing, I'm not becoming an animal. You understand? I'm not becoming low or degraded. I remain with my sense of respect, sense of godliness, sense of modesty, sense of humbleness, etc. Yes. I don't even know if the word is watching, because watching sounds like there's a policeman standing there and watching. It has a negative feeling. God is with me in my experience. He's with me. He's with me when I go shopping. He's with me when I go eat. He's with me when it's Shabbat, and He's with me. So imagine that we have to sometimes give ourselves a physical seeing of this, seeing Him with me. Even, of course. Of course, even more in the pain. Tanya says that in the pain and suffering, he's more, because he's the one doing it. Yes.
So you say like this, but if you something accident, for example, so he's with you. You feel your friend is with you, but accident happened to a person. So how you can explain this?
Why you asking why God made the accident?
Yeah, how you can explain that he's with you and accident?
And he's a loving God, and he loves us so much. How come negative things happen? So you're asking a very, very powerful, deep question. We can talk about this for hours. Why is it that God, who is Tov, and Teva Tov is Lahitiv, good, only does good, seemingly is sometimes doing things that don't seem good to us?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Or like you said, in the punishment, or sometimes it seems like we're being punished, we're being hurt, or negative things are taking place.
Because you don't necessarily see the whole picture, and Hashem sees the whole picture. Like, have you ever heard the expression when one door closes, another one may open? It's like, in the long run, you might not see that, but it's not necessarily a negative thing. And when you say that someone was like losing a child or losing something horrible happening, I'll explain something that happened to me personally, and it was explained to me in such a way that clarified this, because it was a big struggle. I had a late-term pregnancy that I did. And the rabbi that I was speaking with said, this child was so special, and so it was so holy, and had so much like kedusha to give that it went back to God. And I just couldn't understand, dealing with it and not understanding. When you understand the bigger picture and you look at it, it's so much of a beautiful thing. And it could have been, it's a tragedy, right? I mean, it's a horrible thing, but at the same time, we don't understand everything.
Of course.
So,
like a 3-year-old, does she understand why I can't give her ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and supper every day? Why am I being so cruel? Why can't she have those candies? Why does mom have to say just once? The answer is you're 3. The mother knows. She gets the bigger picture. She knows what's good for the child, what's not good for the child. And sometimes, even though the child is crying and isn't happy, but in the long run, because of God, like you said, sees the whole picture and knows much more than we know. We're just little pawns in the picture. So things that seem very negative are really very, very good for us in a deeper sense.
So when somebody dies, go to another place, you say somebody's good place, so that's what he decides.
When somebody dies, he's for sure going to a good place. The question is, why do I have to suffer to do that? Or why did she have to suffer to do her story? That's the problem. The person who's dying he's not the problem. He's going back to where he wants to be. It's the rest of us who have a tragic, feeling here. And the answer is, we don't know. I can't answer the question. Either we're too young to understand, or our brains are too small to get the full picture, like the 3-year-old who can't figure out why mother doesn't give her whatever she wants. There's much deeper and higher worlds and things that are going on, and we're just like, little kids in the scene. So is it easy? No. Do I like it? Maybe not. But I have to believe the whole time that if God is doing it, it must be the best thing for me.
Sometimes I think through pain or through like anything that happens to you, understand. I think to understand happiness, you understand pain. The more pain you understand, the more you can really understand the blessing. You really have a value in that. It's a huge understanding blessing is in and of itself a blessing. To be able to understand it with so much depth. Some people need to see negative things and pain and be able to have that.
Of course.
So my question was maybe is the healing good? So I see what is healing good.
Sometimes we see, sometimes we don't see. It's not.
It
It's not.
took a while.
Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes we
Still
never
don't
get the
know.
end. Listen, if you want to look at the global picture of all the
Yeah.
tragedies that have been going on, and you talk about what's going on in Nazis and Stalin, I mean, we've lived through history that's not explainable at all. I mean, it's even to try to
I
begin.
just say, I'm asking this because sometimes you see, like, for example, in Israel, you see people behave really not nice people, and they really look happy, and people are so good, bad things happen to them. So I can understand this.
You are right for not being able to understand. We all don't understand. It says that Moses asked Hashem, why is it like that? He's a Rasha v'tovlo. He's not okay, and life seems to be glorious for him. And there was the tzaddik, v'rahalo. This is a tzaddik. Look at him, and he's so miserable. Do we understand? If things would be so smooth and great, you know what I'm saying, and so clear, that means that Mashiach, when Mashiach will come, it'll be clarity, straight. We'll see the light, and no questions. Now we're in Galut. That's what it means. Things don't. We know the truth. We know what Hashem wants from us, and we have to keep to our focus, and that's it. Have questions here and there, get your answers, and continue. You know what I'm saying? Continue. Not. It's hard, but it's yeah. Okay. So now we're going to speak about women specifically, more than men. In general, modesty is for everyone, as we said. It's not a specific detail. It's a whole way of life. It's a whole energy. It's a whole way that we project for ourselves and to other people. Like I said, even alone in an island. How is my behavior? How do I think? What do I think? What do I talk about, etc. So I think it's also important to understand before we go into the woman that it starts off with the brain, and then it goes into my action, my speech, and then it goes into my actions. Just like a doctor will tell you that the brain gives the energy for the whole body. If the brain is healthy, the body can be healthy. If something's not okay here, it affects everything, the most important nuclear part. So the same thing as our heads in spirituality is what controls the rest of the body. Which means if my head is packed with the right thing, it'll lead that I will actually follow that with the rest of my body. So that if I think things, I see things and think things and live things in here that are good, that are modest, that are kosher, that are positive things, that's the energy I will get further on. And if my brain is twisted, it's going to have an effect. People think as long as you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter. In other words, when you're reading material or looking at movies or thinking about things that are not modest, that is the foundation of immodesty. There are people who walk around beautifully dressed, everything is nice, but in here it's completely destroyed. This is the real energy. It's true that maybe if the outside is good, it can have effect on the inside. That's true. But the foundation is the brain, which means what I think about, what I look at, what I'm busy with in my head is extremely important. Watching things that are the opposite of modesty develops my brain in that world, in that category, and it gives me an energy and a personality and a character that is comfortable with seeing and thinking things that are not okay. This is the foundation of the person. It becomes like my blood, my energy, my system is living something that is not okay. People, I don't know, somehow in the world, it's like no problem to look at these things and to think about it. As long as you're not doing it, it's fine. That's not true. The brain is the foundation of everything else. If the brain is packed with something, it becomes more comfortable, it becomes more comfortable, and then it's not so foreign to the person. Which means that when they're in a situation where if life is okay and good, then maybe it won't happen. But if it's any situation where it's a little shaky, then this type of action that he's been seeing and looking at and thinking about is not so out of.
What about the credence to, like, we're always in a struggle, right? And the beauty of like learning and becoming closer to Hashem is that struggle. I mean, is it the same to say someone's been put into a box and really doesn't know anything about outside of their world and they're, more pious, or the person who actually lives in the outside world and sees that and has a struggle, and whose struggle has more meaning?
You're asking a very, very powerful question. It's true that there were certain people who were given this job in life and certain people are given this job in life. There's no question that this job that you're describing is much harder. It's much easier to be in a box and live with God, and that's it. And God does want us to be out of the box, live in the world, and be with Him. Together with that, we're not looking for challenges. So we're not saying go into the most difficult, challenging place and try to remain pious over there. What my mission is, that's where I have to work with my struggle. So if I have a 9 to 5 job and this is where I am, then that's where I have to feel God. Together with that, the second that I feel that the place that I'm working with is a struggle for me, and it's a little bit, how do you say, it's like borderline, I'm allowed to say, listen, I'd like to work in a more secure place, more modest place, whatever it is, and change my job place if I feel that I'm not ready for that challenge. You understand? If I feel that the challenge is too strong for me. I personally know somebody who was working in an office for many years and everything was fine, and then a new person came to work in that office, and just from the first day she just didn't feel right with it, and she tried and she tried, and she suddenly said to herself, I have to leave this job. And it was a tremendous thing for her to leave the job. She was there for many years, and now she thanks the Lord every day that she's not there anymore.
Does she know why?
What?
Does she know why she didn't feel right with her?
She knew. Yeah, there was a new person who came to work who his behavior was not working with her. Again, it could be if I would have been there, maybe it wouldn't. You know, everyone is different, and everyone has to. But we have to be honest with ourselves. She was honest with herself. She said, "I cannot handle the struggle." The things he would do or say that just after she realized it wasn't okay for her.
But you say don't put these things in your mind, so you can just.
Yeah, but if you're working with somebody in the same room, and it's every day, and it's from 9 to 5. And you try.
You have to work there, you don't find another job.
So that's what she did. She found another job. That's what I'm saying. She left.
Okay.
I'm not saying that everyone in that situation has to leave. I think we have to be honest with ourselves and know, and maybe discuss with someone who's objective. How do you feel about this? So if I can work it through, that's great. But if I see that I'm not, we all have weaknesses. We all have our things. If I see I'm not, it's not like God wants us to be in the biggest dirt and remain clean. Yes, we are amongst dirty places, and we do have to remain clean. That's definitely a very big thing. Like you said, it's a goal, it's a purpose, it's an down life. Yet we're not here to have the biggest challenges. So your question was really powerful and strong. You should also know that it has a lot to do with neshamot. There were different souls that were given different jobs in life, and some souls were cut out for this, and some souls were cut out for that. People are weaker, people are stronger, people know how to put up how to tell the other person off. Some people don't. So it's a very tricky question.
Maybe like we're all growing or moving from one level to another. So maybe when you move to a different level, then maybe you can deal with different things.
Also true.
At a certain level when you are, you have to consider where you are right now.
Right. It says that.
That's what I have an issue with. Like the whole idea of trade from Medina. Like, it's the world belongs to God. And for me, like, having a very strong life in the secular world and my struggle for myself is the beauty of it. I enjoy the struggle. I enjoy being that. Like, and I think if I didn't, and I didn't, it would not have as much meaning for me.
But I think that's a beautiful thing what you're saying now. It's really powerful. But do you recognize that probably has something to do with your personality?
Right, probably.
It probably does. There are people who had to run away.
Right.
As soon as they became religious, they had to run away. After 10 years, they slowly were able to, because they couldn't stand with 2 feet straight with all these challenges. And maybe, I don't know you, but maybe your personality is like that type of.
I'm a very type A person, but like for me, like I don't. If it's something you wrote and like, okay, every day we do this. Like my mother, for example, she's been keeping kosher for her whole life. She's going traditionally Sephardic. Like if I ask her a question, like she can't answer my questions because she kind of does it. But she gets a lot of kavana from that. For me, I'm like, how does she get kavana from this? Does she really know? Like, yeah, it's well, does she really know these things? Right. So, no, I understand what you're saying. It's foreign to me as a person.
Yeah.
Because if there isn't like that challenge, for me, it becomes.
That it's not real.
Yeah,
which is true. It's 100% true what you're saying. Challenge makes something, when I struggle with something and still went through it, that means that I'm really there. Yeah. I'm there all the way, and it's for real. Together with that, there are some people, and specifically in some areas, you see, it could be the same person like you, but in here, no, here you can't. Like, some people in certain areas are weaker. This is where I lose myself. So I have to keep guard and make myself a safe from. And then some people in general are just much weaker. They just don't have that strength. I have a friend who became Israelis, like real from a kibbutz with the whole pony thing and everything, and they moved to America and they were working here for many years. And here they became slowly, slowly, slowly religious, him and her. And he told me the worst thing for me is to go back to Israel because I would never be able to continue doing what I'm doing now amongst my friends and family. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm a weak personality. They will just give me one look and mock, what? You became, and laugh it off, and he would just lose it. He wouldn't, here, he was strong, he was able to do what he did, but to go back there, he wouldn't be able to have that strength. So that's, we have to know ourselves. We have to know ourselves. Okay, so let's go back to what we're talking about. So we're talking about the head. It's a very big mistake to think that a person can read things and see things and do things and contemplate things, and it's not going to have an effect. And sometimes from the positive, we can learn the negative. In other words, just like we know that if I concentrate and think about holy things, higher things, deeper things, it makes me a deeper, higher person, right? That's a given. If I spend every day 2 hours just in something in a higher mode, it could be the first time it's like, what is this? This is so far from me. But after a month and 2 months and 3 months, it becomes comfortable. It becomes part of me and it lifts me up. It makes me a higher, deeper person. So the same thing is in the negative. Person can't say, I'm okay, I'm perfect, I don't do anything wrong. So what? I get a kick out of, looking at these things or thinking about these things. There's no such thing. The brain is in charge. If the brain is busy with such things, this is the energy that the body is getting. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you become more comfortable and more comfortable and more comfortable. And then it's not so shocking to you anymore. And then after a while, you can even watch people doing it actively, and then you can fall into the same trap yourself. So the first thing is machshava. A person has to have modest thoughts. Modest thoughts means not thinking about other people in like relationships, not thinking about other people in anything immodest in the world that's considered not acceptable should not be in my mind either. That's the point. Whether it's other people's relationships, whether it's other people's dress, or especially when it's the other gender, anything that's in the world of lowering my standard is not okay to think about or to look at. It's a very important thing. Now, of course, we walk in the streets and that's what we see, especially in the city. Like all the billboards are just giving you things that are kind of dragging us in the wrong direction, making us think things that we would rather not be thinking and we don't want to think about. So it's like you're saying, it's a struggle, it's a challenge to say, I saw it, but I'm not contemplating on it. I'm not thinking this is not my world. I think about other things and to continue with our focus and our goal and live with what we have to live with, etc. So that's the first thing, that the head has to be pure, the head has to be clean, the head has to be higher and deeper. And that's why it's so important to learn a lot, to pray, to think about nice things, about higher people, about good people, people who have an influence on us, people who can, inspire us in a higher mode. Then comes speech. Very, very interesting. I have a friend who became religious. And before she was religious, she had lived a very immoral life, in a very low, and becoming religious, she left all that, and she stopped all that. But even after she was religious, she enjoyed like repeating the things she used to do, like that past life. In speech, she'd have a good time telling people, the things that the life she had, etc. And after a while, she stopped doing that. She just stopped doing that. And it was only like about a year later that she once came to me and told me, I hope everybody forgot what I ever said. In other words, she had become so uncomfortable with it that she didn't even want it to have existence. And it really showed me the levels of how things work, from acting that way to talking about it, to not talking about it, to hoping everyone never knew that ever existed. This means that the person became more sensitive and more sensitive and more sensitive and more sensitive. So we have machshava, what's in the brain, and we have dibur, what's in the mouth, and then we have what's in the action, and then we have not even to know that such a thing exists. It was very powerful for me to see the sensitivity getting stronger and stronger. So here we're talking about speech. People think, listen, I don't really think about these things. I don't do these things. I don't look at these things. I certainly don't act these things. But sometimes you want to have a good time with the conversation. It's not true. It's not true. What we say is very, very powerful. It's very strong. It's an expression. Speech talking about things that are immodest are not okay. I mean, as we know, it's not something that's so deep that we have to go into. What we talk about is a very strong thing, and we have to make sure that we talk things that are higher and deeper and stronger, and that lifts us up higher, deeper, stronger. So the excuse, I don't do that, I just talk about it, I like when my friend tells me about it, when someone else watched the movie and she's just going to repeat it to me, that's not okay. That's not okay. We don't talk about things in the world of immodesty. And then, of course, comes the practical part of how we live. The life that we live has to be one of modesty. It has to be one of cleanliness. It has to be one of purity. So you're talking about the world of intimacy. There's a whole Torah about how husband and wife are supposed to live with each other. It's called the laws of Taharat Mishpacha. Do I teach that? Could I teach that? Well, not in today's class, certainly not. I'll see if it's on the program maybe for a different week. It's not.
It is in the program, yeah.
It is?
It is. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if next week or the last week, but we do have it.
So just the laws of how are we supposed to live with our husbands. I remember once I was maybe 15, 16 years old, and I was going on a plane myself, traveling somewhere. And the steward on the plane, male steward, was a sort of religious girl, and thought, he can get some information out of it. Now, in those times, 15, 16 was like today saying 10, 11. Well, maybe not. 10-year-olds are very intellectual today, maybe like 6 years. I mean, I was really, really innocent and ignorant. I didn't know anything. And he started asking me questions about, Jewish people and intimacy and stuff like that. And on the one hand, I didn't know what he was talking about. On the other hand, I didn't want to sound dumb either. Like, I was supposed to be Mrs. Smart. Like, how am I going to get out of this? And I just remember telling him, listen, I can't tell you any details. I could just tell you that whatever it is, it's the best way it should be. I just remember telling him that sentence. And it was only years later that I realized, like, the strength it took for me. Like, here, I know for sure that this is good. Don't ask me about it because I can't tell you, and I also don't want to discuss it with you, but I know that it's good. So in other words, if Torah tells us how to do things, this is the way that it should be done.
How to tell to your kids also.
How to speak to kids, what to tell to kids, when they should know things, how they should know things, etc., etc. There are kids today who are 12 or 13 years old, and they're like 18 years old. They know everything, they've seen it all, and they have to be spoken to. There are kids today who are even 5 or 6 who start having questions. Also, how to answer their questions. Behavior between husband and wife, behavior between different genders, between brothers and sisters, between fathers and daughters, etc. Torah discusses every single one of these things. And it just makes it so powerful and beautiful to realize that there's such clarity. It's so clear. Torah is the first place that talks about ahava and love and relationships and avas Yisrael, love between people, love between husband and wife, love between Jewish people in general. And together with that, the laws of what's okay, what's modest, and what's not modest are very, very strong. So, intimacy, getting dressed in the morning. How is a person supposed to get dressed in the morning? For example, going to the bathroom. How do we go to the bathroom? A bathroom has to have a lock on the door. Different things like that is really, really powerful points. The Torah tells us exactly in each one what it means to be modest. What I wanted to discuss now, I have a different class on Taharat HaMishpacha that goes into the whole relationship between husband and wife, and there's also a class, maybe it'll be next week, on Yichud. Yichud means, what's the exact translation? What does it mean?
Separation?
No,
No,
Yichud is
like
the opposite.
unity.
Yichud is unity, but there's a better word than unity, inclusion. Right, Yichud means inclusion. There's a whole bunch of laws, maybe next week, maybe we'll get into it next week, about when and how a woman and male who are not married to each other are allowed to do things in work, in social things, in just being in a home together, just being in a house or boarding together or taking an apartment, things like that. Including if it's a cousin or a brother-in-law or a grandfather or someone like that, when it's allowed and when it's not allowed. Torah tells us, and this is Torah who tells us how we have to have love for every person and be good to every person and be giving. And here sometimes there's like no that are just not allowed. This is not okay. If you want to take a driver to 4 hours away from here to Pennsylvania, can I take a car with a man? Can my brother-in-law drive me up to the mountains, one evening? Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? So these are all the laws of inclusion, because the word yichud, inclusion, really means that there's one situation where inclusion is not just kosher but ideal and beautiful. And that is when a man and woman decide to get married to each other. So then that's where yichud is not just good, but that's the ideal. That's the most beautiful thing that God wants, that there should be what we call union or unification or inclusion between a man and a woman. And anything other than that becomes very, very not okay. Mm-hmm. So we have what's beautiful and the most loving thing, so to speak, and then anything that may be similar or even close or even not close, but can come to that level is very, very strict, and Torah gives very strict laws about that we shouldn't come to anything that shouldn't happen, etc. So those are the laws of yichud. Yeah.
What about the office where it's rational, it's just business stuff, but
right. So that's something we may discuss next week. I'm not sure. I'm going to check on the thing. We're not going to go into yichud now, but I want to just discuss in general how Torah gives laws of modesty. So we have intimacy, and we have yichud with anybody, and then we have just general behaviors. Even like we said, when I'm alone on an island, I'm alone. There's no one else around. There's a certain dignified thing. This is a neshama. This is the soul of God. How does he act? How does he talk? What does he do? And then we have the woman, specifically male and woman, but specifically woman, and that's what I really wanted to get to because she wanted me to cover the laws of tzniut. Specifically woman in terms of dress, yeah?
There, that I do really like, it's on.
It's very comfortable. I feel comfortable.
Okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Right. Just specifically the laws of tzniut in a woman. So we discussed the thoughts, thinking things that are deeper and higher and not letting it get dragged down into other things. We discussed speech also, to talk about things that would be happy if God was listening to our conversation, so to speak. That's always the testing factor. Am I speaking humble things? Am I speaking me, self-gratification things? And then we have the dress. And Torah is really, really strong about how a Jewish woman is supposed to dress. It's really interesting. Torah considers the body of the Jewish woman something holy, something precious, and something extremely, extremely private. And it's compared to a Sefer Torah, just like the Bible, the Torah is something precious and holy. We don't take it with us wherever we go. We don't flaunt it in the streets. We don't open it up. Everybody knows that in the synagogue, on the northern wall, there's an ark that's usually the most beautiful part of the synagogue, covered with a special parochet, a special velvet covering. When you open the first covering and you open the second covering, and even then you're taking out the Torah, it's still completely wrapped up and rolled with another velvet covering. And only at the right time is it taken off and open, and it's held precious. It's on the bima. Don't just let the kids, why don't they let the kids in the shul hold the Torah? Play with the Torah, dance with it. You don't. It's on the bima just for the reading. It's protected from all sides. When it's picked up, I always notice how the people standing around are like, making sure that it's right. Have you noticed that? Because when they pick it up, sometimes the person has to be very strong, especially if it's a heavy one. It shouldn't, shake or whatever. They're all standing, like holding it, protecting it, watching it. It's turned around. Everyone can see it, and then right away put back down, rolled up, and put back inside. The Torah says the same exact thing as a Jewish woman. It's something precious. It's something special. It's not cheap. It's not out there in the streets for anyone who wants can take it and touch it and see it and get a picture of it and hold it, etc., etc.
Like a diamond.
It's like a diamond. A diamond you keep in a special place. Yes, there are times I put it on my finger and I want to wear it, but still, I don't just give it to anyone to hold, to touch. And when I take it off, I put it in a special box, and it's not just randomly lying on the floor for the kids to play as they're, with their toys. It's something precious. And so the Jewish woman is precious. Her body is precious. It has a certain purpose in life. It has a certain goal in life, and it has to do that goal in the most precious and glorified and nicest fashion. And until that, or everything around that, it has to be treated and respected in a special way.
How do we get this out to all the women?
I think we have to first get this into ourselves. We have to worry about ourselves. And we'll give off the vibes. We'll give off the vibes with ourselves. We can't change the word, we can change ourselves. I think that's the goal we have to work on. We have to really live this with an emes. You know what I'm saying? It's improving in my way of thinking, in my way of living, and my whole stability of the idea of living with Hashem for real. You know what I'm saying? And then we understand it. It says that the Jewish woman was made from an inner limb, an inner bone of Adam and Eve. Eve was made from a bone, from Adam, from an inner bone, to show that she's an inner thing. It's a deeper thing. There were generations where women really didn't go out. They weren't even in the street. They weren't seen ever. They were home in the house doing their thing. We don't live in that world, like you were saying. We live in a world of struggles. We do go out, and many women work, and many women have to be out there to just do things and help, etc., etc., to create and to make changes. But the point has to remain with us. The focus has to remain with us. This is something precious. It's something deeper. It's something inner. It's not something to give off. It's not something for everyone to see and to hear. Someone just told me yesterday the funniest remark. She woke up in the morning at 9 o'clock to bring her daughter to school. So it's in a different neighborhood. And she sees a woman walking in the streets with leather shorts. And she's like, 9 o'clock in the morning, why is this woman wearing leather shorts? Every woman here is walking around as if she has 6 video cameras on her, like as if the whole woman is just trying to, in a different place, not here. But the way she said it to me, it just made me start laughing. That's really what we're living with today. I'm saying in specific neighborhoods. This happened to North Williamsburg. It's like off the water there. It's like a real, hot place where young people are moving to and living, or in Bushwick you have it, or certainly in the city. People dress and go out there as if everyone is now, trying to figure out this woman. That's not our goal in life. That's not what we're here for. That's not what your purpose is. It's not so evade. It's unfortunate that we have to remember, we have to be focused, and we have to know what's the truth, and that our bodies are here to be sheltered and protected and covered, and not free for all. The Jewish body is holy, and a woman's body is even holier because she is the vessel of giving birth to a new body and a new neshama and a new soul. There's a story of one of the great Tanaim in the times of the Talmud. He never would walk in front of a Jewish woman, always behind, because maybe this woman was pregnant, and maybe she was carrying a very big soul in her stomach. He wouldn't want to walk in front of that. He would give that respect and walk behind her. Can you imagine? Maybe the woman was pregnant, and maybe she was carrying a big soul in her stomach. He even went on to say, and with every baby in the stomach is an angel who's learning and protecting the baby, so he didn't want to walk in front of the angel. So yes. In general speaking, men shouldn't walk behind women because they may end up like that's just a general law that men learn. It's a men's thing. No, with your husband. Of course. I'm talking about a man who's walking alone in the streets, and there's like a group of women in front of him. You should go to the side or go in front of them. You don't just like walk behind women, because it kind of get your attention to looking at the people in front of you. But she's right. It's usually a law that the men learn. It's not a woman's thing. They learn that they shouldn't. It's also not a black and white law. It's a more modest way. It makes sense not to walk behind women. But this was a very great Sabbath. So he wasn't in the category of looking at people. He was living in a higher mode, and he felt, 1 second, maybe there's a high soul here, maybe there's an angel here. I can't go in front of it, and so he would, always walk behind. Which again shows us what the woman's body really is. What is the purpose of it? What's the goal of it? And how it's something very high and very deep. And that's why Torah tells us how we should make sure that it's protected. And I see it's already 12 o'clock, and the whole point of this class was to go through the Tznius laws. So let's at least use the 5 minutes and go through it, just in short. The point is to constantly be covered. We're not talking about a complete covering. The Arabs think that the more you cover, the better. So in other words, if you're more religious, you cover the whole face, and you cover even the eyes, etc., etc. Torah tells us there are parts of the body that reflect the inner of the person, and parts of the body that reflect the external of the person. The panim, for example, panim is Hebrew for face. Panim is the same word as pnimiyut. Pnimiyut means inner. When you look at someone's face, it expresses the inner of the person, her personality, her character. Is she happy? Is she sad? Is she nervous? Etc., etc. So looking at a face is not called immodest, because you're looking at it deeper. You're looking at the soul, at the energy of the person. The same thing is with the hands. Hands, Torah says, reflect something deeper. They're expressing something. They're revealing something from the deeper part, and that's why hands don't have to be covered. The rest of the body, Torah tells us, is already something that you can be attracted to the external, including the chest and the neck until the neck bone over here, including the the feet, even the bottom of the feet, the whole thing, that already has a part that can attract to inner, and therefore that has to be covered. What? No, you should cover the feet. I'm saying including the feet. Everything from here.
No, because I see all the women with their socks.
Socks. We don't go with flip-flops. We do cover the feet. And so the only part is the face and the hands.
And why do you have to put socks on the feet? What is so
So the question why is very valid. Why this and not that? For example, it says that the elbow is not. This is okay, but the elbow is not okay. Do you see a difference between here and here?
Yes.
You do?
No.
Why? What's the difference
Yeah,
if it's
what-
here or here? What's the and we can always ask why. Yeah, why? And why? What's the difference if it's here or if it's here? Like, there's so many questions that you can ask why. You see, there's two parts to Torah. There's part of Torah that there's a law, we do what God says, and that's it. Then there's a part of Torah where Hashem wants us, God wants us to understand and to learn and to figure it out. But that part is just as an added cream to the cake that it's nice if you know it. But it's not a criteria. You know what criteria means?
You know Hebrew to tell me?
Is it, I do know Hebrew, but I don't know. שמבינים או לא מבינים, זה לא מה שיעשה את החוק כן או לא. את מבינה? יש את החוק וככה זה. And then there's beautiful ways to explain and understand it deeper. But this has nothing to do with this. In other words, if I do understand it, don't understand. That's one of our big mistakes. I was teaching Tahat HaMashpacha to a woman who wasn't religious, and she's married for a few years. Okay, I understand the whole thing. I just don't get this. I'll do this, and I'm not going to do this. And I had to explain to her, even though it's beautiful and good to understand, that's not the thing that's going to make me do or not do. I do because God said. That's it. Now I can try to understand something. If I understand better, so I feel better about something. If I understand less, so I don't understand so better. But Torah is not based on what I understand. In my Yesod Zippor, as do we all agree that if this is what Torah is based on, I'm in trouble? My little brain, even if I'm Mr. Brilliant, it stops somewhere.
That's the case, then why do we have laws that are chukim that don't have
Right.
an understanding? Then why do we have laws that do have an understanding? I always thought that you should know what it is that you're doing for accountability.
Even the chukim, we're allowed to understand and learn and figure out, but that's not why. For example, eating kosher is a chok. We eat kosher because God said. Together with that, it's so beautiful to understand the laws. Why do I have to have this week's parsha, the split hooves and the chewing with cuds and the whole significance behind split hooves and chewing cuds? When the animal's kosher. Or to understand the whole thing of shechita, or the whole thing that the scientists are saying today, how kosher food is cleaner and it's healthier. And if you well, today not anymore, but if they change back and forth. But in the years that they say it's cleaner, so now I feel good about it. And if they say it's not clean, then I don't feel. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. We can't change every 5 years the Torah. The Torah is one thing. It's 3,500 years old, and this is what it is. Now my brain can try to connect. But where it connects and doesn't connect, that's not going to change the same. Because one emet means that it never changes. Emet, one emet, achad, achad. My brain sometimes gets there and sometimes doesn't because it's like a toy. Oved lo oved. You know what I'm saying? It's not. That can't be my factor of how I'm going to do what God wants me to do. So it's beautiful to understand, and it's nice to understand and to connect. But I don't get the difference between here and there. I don't. So now I'm going to. Torah says, what I understand is beautiful. What I don't understand, like you said, is even more beautiful. So I'm doing it without understanding. You understand? Yeah. Otherwise, we're lost. A Torah that's based on a brain is yeah.
There's a halacha that says that a minhag or something that's done by the mass of a community carries weight. Not just, let's say, for example, there's a law that let's say it's okay to wear it over here. But the minhag of the community is that you wear it down to the wrist. It's okay for us to wear 3/4 sleeves. Right. Should we go with the minhag of the community? Is there a law that says
That's a very, very powerful question. The answer is yes. Al tifrosh min hatzibur means not to separate yourself. So if I move to a place, let's say I just move to a place, and everybody wears their clothes till here, I have an obligation to follow that. Then if I move to that place, I have to. Then also, imagine everyone's a block. You're going to come with your yellow and white polka dotted dress. That's not okay. It's not, even in terms of modesty. It's not modest to stand out amongst the crowd. Al tifrosh min hatzibur, which means not to separate yourself from the crowd, from the cloud.
But like also in like not you're saying like they were using like longer sleeves. So what about shorter sleeves? What about short neckline?
I'm not talking about cutting what Torah said.
Yeah, so
That's very important to emphasize. Thank you. If it's on the, and no one keeps Shabbat, so I'm going to say I'm not going to keep Shabbat. No, we do what God says and that's it. But when it comes to customs or things that are a little bit more, then we should join them. Yes, yes, definitely. That's a very important law that Torah tells us about, not to be different and not to stand out. Yes, sure.
When you're saying Torah, are you including Gemara, Mishnah, or are you just talking about like the 5 books? Like, whenever people say Torah, you're always assuming like that's what I'm talking about. It's not, or they also.
What do you think when it comes to Torah?
Talking about everything.
Yeah, Torah. There's one Torah that was given at Mount Sinai. It's true that we only got the 5 books then, but the 5 books included everything. And they learned everything. They learned the Mishnah, they learned the Gemara, they learned everything. The difference was that they were told not to write it, they learned it all. Then Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi saw that this is getting shaky. People are forgetting all the things. Let's put it down. And then put down further, and they just have to write and write and write and write.
To me, like, it's all these machlokases that come into play after. And, like, you have 15 opinions for, like, one thing. Like, my modern Orthodox rabbi looks at things a certain way. I'll talk to someone who looks at something a certain way. I'll talk to Chabad looks at, and I'm thinking, this was all
Machloket in Torah always existed. Hillel and Shammai always existed. Moshe Rabbeinu in the Midbar, in the desert, had lines and lines and lines of people asking him questions daily. So questions always existed. It's true that a person has to accept upon himself a Rav, his how do you say, his derech, how do you say derech? You know what derech means? His way, his path, have his Rav and be connected to that. That's for sure 100% true. We also have to always strive to be better and more and better and more. There are unfortunately groups in Judaism that are trying to do the other way around. They're not even embarrassed to call themselves reform. We're changing things, or conservadox. We're going to take so we're not going to go into that. But basically, where I live, the community that I choose to live, and the rabbi that I choose to pick from, has to be always someone who's a step higher than me, a step more than me, a little bit growing, because we want to grow. We're not going to go to the rabbi who's dragging me down, right? We're going to go to the rabbi who's lifting me up. So pick someone who's a little bit higher than who we are, and stick to that. It could be we outgrow our rabbis. There is such a thing where you feel like you became more and more, and your rabbi is in a certain place, and then we can, go stronger. That's okay. But the main thing is not to, how do we call it? Sheker, not to fool ourselves. Do you know what I'm saying? We have to be emes people. We have to be true, real people. In other words, for trying to get away with things, or trying to find ways to, be more lenient. The person has to be real and true. Could be, I'm not up to this yet. I'm only up to this. That's valid. That's fine. I'll get there. I know that that's the ideal. I'll go to that situation. That's fine. In the meantime, I'm, doing what I'm doing. But the sheker organizations of making things to make it more comfortable and more, I'm saying that never existed in Judaism. Machloket is valid, it's beautiful, it's nice if it's with a higher goal. Machloket is the worst thing if it's in self-ego, I goal. They say Machloket l'shem shamayim is the most beautiful thing. The whole Talmud is full of it. This one says it, that one says it, this one says it, should it be in it? And you always have a conclusion, and everyone's still best friends. They're still making a Machloket again, and they're still making a Machloket again because they're still learning with each other in the same place.
Right, how that women need to be exclusive. It's right in the Torah.
Yeah.
So why some religion go until here and not until here?
So that's what we're talking about. There are places where people try to make things more comfortable and more happy. This is black and white. The only thing that's not so black and white is the stocking. Black and white is the collarbone over here, and this over here, and certainly till after the knees. The skirt to be after the knees. There's one place where the Sfaradim has the Ashkenazim and this and that, and that's what she was really asking about, the custom of the place. So you do what the people were used to. And the Ashkenazim, for many, many years, were used to putting on stockings or socks, and that's why that became the acceptable to put on stockings or stockings or socks. But the Sfaradim in olden countries used to wear very long robes to the floor and walk like almost barefoot in the sand. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it came from, that maybe there was a question between covering the toes and the socks, etc. But this isn't the question. This is agreed by everybody, and yeah, this is
something lip gloss or something when you put on your lips, it has to be kosher, or you can put lip gloss like Victoria's Secret and stuff like this. Lipstick, gloves.
You know, I think you have to know yourself. You have to know yourself. If you're the type that gets it in your mouth and all over your lips, then you have to be more careful. But if it doesn't happen to you, then it's okay.
So there is a with taste, with flavor, some of them. That's okay. Like a lip gloss with flavor.
And like maybe the rabbi.
No, I'm not. You know, I don't know what to tell
I was
you.
reading about that last night. It said there are like 30 opinions again.
Oh,
One said it's not a product to be eaten. One said it has glycerin in it, which isn't kosher. You don't want to ingest this glycerin product. The other said that because it's the intention of what you're doing with it is not to ingest or to eat, that even with toothpaste, like, you know, some people do Tom's, some people do Crest. And is Crest wrong? Not necessarily. It's what you choose.
So I want to explain to you why this is not three different things. Really, everyone's saying the same thing. We all know what's the ideal. We all know that it's still okay. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like it's a halacha of what is it. Everyone knows you're not allowed to eat kosher.
Like,
Everyone knows you're not allowed to eat non-kosher. Everyone also knows that lipstick is not meant for eating. Together with that, we all know that it may get onto the tongue or onto the teeth. So if there's something in there that's black and white, what did you call it? Right. So if there's something like pig, I don't know. You just don't want to be there. You just don't want to be there if there's a 1% chance that it might get. Together with that, to go checking and making sure that there's a hechsher in every lipstick, if it's not something that we're eating, you know what I'm saying?
But you say the whole restriction was,
No. I said kind of like not necessarily things are right or wrong, because I mean you don't have to hold the trial.
Right.
You can get
Right.
no,
That's true.
Like,
that's true.
Knowing, is there something? My last question is: once you know, are you more accountable for something? Because if you didn't know about clothes around and you're eating Kit Kats and you've been eating Kit Kats your whole entire life, the day that says to you, well, you know, there's clothes around, there's what, and then you have this thing in your head, you know, like, oh, I'm going to continue eating Kit Kats. That act of eating the Kit Kats once you know is completely different.
That's your neshama. That's your conscience. You have a deeper neshama.
Your animal instinct as opposed to your
It's 100% true. It's 100% true. There's no question about it. Together with that, we have to be honest with ourselves. Am I ready to take upon myself this or no? I mean, Ella was coming.
Like, I want to learn anything else.
You don't want to do more stuff.
Sometimes it's like, you know, it's like now I don't do anything.